Whoa, that's one massive, massive hard drive. I mean, it must be... Oh, no, wait. It's actually really, really tiny. This is the Samsung SSD T1. Hi there, Alex Kidman from Fat Duck Tech, taking a look at the Samsung SSD T1. As the name suggests, this is Samsung's latest SSD external storage device. In this case, I've got the 500GB variant just here. Now, unlike a lot of other SSDs, this is a pretty stylish looking device. It looks quite nice, and it is astonishingly light. It's really, really very light indeed. 30 grams or so, you really don't feel it in the hand, and it's surprising even when you first pick it up. It's a really tiny drive, and to appreciate this, here's the Samsung drive up against another suitably thin and light drive, Seagate 7 drive. Now, the 7's a mechanical drive, so yes, it's a bit bigger, although, to its credit, it's actually just about the same thickness. Underneath that, Samsung's got some of its fastest SSD memory sitting in there. Samsung also ships it with inbuilt encryption, which you can choose to use or not when you're setting up the drive. It's formatted as exFAT, so it should work across both Macs and PCs, although obviously, depending on the size of the files you're shipping around, you may wish to format it for a specific system and compatibility. Setup itself is actually fairly simple. This is just me taking it through setup on a MacBook Air, and there's really not too much to say about the interface. You can set a name for the drive, you can set a password, and obviously it's vital that you set a password that you can remember, because with the full encryption on this drive, if you forget it, your data is irretrievably stuffed. Of course, the reason you buy an SSD is for the speed, and there's any number of ways you can speed test a drive. I'm using Blackmagic's speed test here, mostly because it's a good visual app. The reality is, of course, if you transfer a lot of smaller files, you won't really see the benefit of an SSD, whereas if you're transferring large folders of files, or specifically large video files, that's where it can be a real productivity boost. And as we can see, it's actually a really solid, fast performer. And clearly, the reason you buy an SSD like this is for the speed. Undeniably, the Samsung SSD T1 delivers in this regard. By way of comparison for size, here's the Seagate 7 that I was demoing earlier, running the same test. And as you can see, whilst it's performing reasonably well, it's still only about a third the speed of the Samsung drive. So what are the downsides for the Samsung SSD T1? Well, look, I could get kind of picky and point out that plastic enclosure isn't the strongest thing in the world. I would be a little bit concerned if you were regularly going to be having it rattling around in a bag that it might get smashed up against something. It's not going to hold up the way a metal enclosure would, although a metal enclosure obviously would be a fair bit heavier. Equally, I'm not a huge fan of the fact that USB 3 cable is fairly short, but that's very much a glass half full kind of observation. You may love the fact that it has a very short USB 3 cable. The big kicker here, though, is the pricing. The 500 gig model that I've reviewed here runs to $429 in Australia. You could save yourself a bit of money and get the 256 gig variant, which is $269, or if you're particularly flush with cash, buy the 1TB version, which runs to $799. That's right, $799. Remember when hard drives cost $800? I do. Those were dim, dark days, but as with any new technology, the early adopters are the ones who get stung on price, and that's certainly what's happening here. Final thoughts. Well, this is an excellent drive. It does what it says on the tin. It's fast, it's light, it's secure, but you're paying a serious price premium. If you've got a genuine need for this kind of speed, this is a great drive to buy. But if you've got a little bit more patience, a little bit more time, or you're a little bit more strapped for cash, there are many, many cheaper alternatives available. And remember, if you enjoyed this review, feel free to leave me some feedback below and hit that subscribe button.